People die in fires, not because of panic. It's more likely to be the lack of panic. This is a video taken from a security camera, an off-licence up in Liverpool. And the background to this fire is that a group of children were going to try and swipe some sweets or something from the off-licence. The idea was they would create a diversion by setting a small fire in some boxes of crisps.
Neil Townsend's work has brought him face to face with the reality of scripts. But most firemen never see it, nor does the average investigator. It has all happened by the time they turn up.
A young lad comes in. He's followed in by this other lad who strikes a match now, throws it into some crisps down here. Quite early on in the fire, this female customer looks round about now, sees the fire. People tend to...
When we find ourselves involved in a fire, one of the things which stops us acting may be a simple fear of embarrassment.
You'll see a gentleman come along and walk in. If we stop it there, he's actually now looking straight at the fire. So he knows, he's actually seen the fire. If you imagine this guy was walking down the streets thinking, oh, I need some cigarettes. Unfortunately, as he walks through the door, he encounters a fire. And this isn't in his script at all. But what does he do about it? He looks at it, joins the back of the queue. Now, these two customers actually know that there's a fire. So they've sort of come to a mutual agreement that they're not going to do anything about it. They don't want to be embarrassed. And eventually, when they do agree, they both agree now, exactly the same time, we ought to do something. You can see the flames rising now. This fire is getting fairly serious. A woman comes across the street with a group of children for the sole purpose of actually looking at the fire. But she keeps them in relative safety because she keeps them near the doorway. The fire continues and eventually the whole store is destroyed. People might think, well, there's a fire, we better get out. What this one demonstrated is that it didn't motivate people to leave the shop, it actually drew more people in.
Nobody will ever forget the tragedy of King's Cross. Less familiar is the part played in that night's events by the scripts or routines which people maintained.
In the main ticket hall, the intense heat cracked solid concrete. Survivors said it was like an oven. The floor, walls and ceiling were alight, and hours after the fire was out, the metal ticket machines were still too hot to touch. Behind them, the remains of the escalator where the blaze started. Most of the victims died in the ticket hall, suffocated in the swirling black smoke which filled the tunnels and hid the exits.
Yeah, good morning, this is King's Cross. We've got a call out for a busker at the moment. Could you add we've got an aggressive female beggar as well now.
31 people died at King's Cross Underground Station in November 1987, when a fire which started beneath an escalator spread up into the ticket hall. In the wake of the disaster, a major study was made of the way people behaved as the disaster unfolded. There were stories of people stopping to use the phone or the toilets. In the mainline station above, one man even seemed to ignore the thick smoke to get his photo taken. Though the danger might have seemed obvious, people were unable to alter their script.
When the train comes in, of course, your focus is on going forward and out and up beyond the platform. You're not thinking about anything else that might be happening. You're just going to get out as quickly as you can and follow through on that sort of habit pattern that you're fixed on. Even though there was smoke billowing up from the escalator and their lives were clearly in very great danger, they were still carrying on the way they would normally, as if there had been no emergency at all.
The disaster inquiry heard evidence that astonished many, but which to the investigators came as no surprise.
It was railman John Wood who caused the uproar by arguing that 85% of all the people who died that night had died because of their own stupidity. He was standing at the foot of the burning Piccadilly line escalators the night of the tragedy, trying to stop people using them. However, he said many people completely ignored his warnings and he was pushed onto his back at least 3 times.
On the night, there were examples of customers on their way home, wanting to catch a train upstairs in the mainline station, who, when told by staff, don't go that way, go this way, just brush past them. There was even a point when there were tapes across the escalators, and yet people just unhooked the tapes and got onto the escalators.
Your willingness to change your script or routine in an emergency doesn't just depend on getting information. Who that information comes from is vital.
When the underground staff tried to tell people what to do, a lot of their instructions were ignored. But when a fire officer or a police officer instructed passengers to do some other behaviour or leave by another route, then that was listened to. So you need good information, but it's got to come from someone who you trust.
It wasn't just the passengers who'd found themselves unable to break out of their routine. Some staff members failed to recognise the danger. One ticket collector had to be told 3 times that there was a fire on the escalator before he went to investigate.
You're totally really in the hands of the people you see as the authority figures, the people who will give you information about what you need to do. And you need something special, some particular piece of guidance to tell you that it's not a normal situation and that your behaviour must therefore be different and you must deal with things in a different way.